Okay, so this is going to be sort of a side series to the main Let's Play. This is only going to be a reading video. I'm going to do some of the lore and just read a lot of the descriptions and stuff. We're going to go through the codex, and we're just going to do a bunch of reading on the side here. So if you're not interested in this, just go ahead and skip to the next episode of the actual game. So we're going to start by going through the countries that are the neighbors, and we'll just learn a little bit about them. So we're going to start here in Volgsland. Volgsland is an influential country located off the east coast across the Markian Sea. It is an island nation and a major naval power to be reckoned with. Volgslandians and their language, Volgian, have spread around the globe because of their colonial past. After the forming of the Democratic Republic of Volgsland in 1920, all traces of the empire have been removed. Volgsland is a member state of CSP. We go to CSP. Let's find out what CSP is. The Contanan Security Pact is an intra-governmental military alliance between 9 countries. Led by United Contana, this alliance creates an integrated defense strategy and military cohesion to defend against the ATO. The CSP, at its core, is a strategic military alliance but consists mostly of countries that have planned economies and that trade resources with United Contana. The goal of the alliance is to counter the influence of capitalism by Arcasia and to protect the continent of Contana. The CSP has in the past decades moved to expand their influence in Mercopa, and is focused on using allies like Volgsland to face the ATO. What is the ATO? The Arcasian Trade Organization, or Treaty Organization. An intergovernmental military alliance between 14 countries, primarily led by Arcasia. The alliance aims to bring all its members together in united economic and defense frameworks against the CSP. With ATO's strategic military alliance heavily consists of countries with capitalist economic structures. Its aim is to counter the influence of United Contana around the globe and protect Mercopa from the expansion of socialism. Recently, the ATO has become increasingly focused on increasing nuclear protection as the new military weapon has advanced enough to become part of warfare. Okay, excellent. So, back to Volgsland. The Democratic Republic of Volgsland, commonly known as Volgsland, is a socialist republic situated on the island of Volgos and several small islands. It is governed by the People's Party, with Helm as its capital. Chancellor Emmerich Hegel currently serves as head of government. Before the Volg tribe settled on the island of Volgos in the 11th century, the area was inhabited mainly by tribal Galmanic people. Due to being isolated on the island for centuries, they developed a distinct islander culture, moving further away from its cultural roots, which they shared with the cultures of Mark and Sword. During the 16th century, Kingdom of Volgos greatly expanded its borders in the race for colonization of the Rika and Xena continents, and was later declared to be the Empire of Volgos. For much of the period until the 19th century, Volgos had the largest navy in the world, and was considered to be the superpower of the seas. The Democratic Republic of Volgsland was formed in 1920 following the Volgslandian Revolution led by the revolutionary Wilhelm Ulbricht. Ulbricht overthrew the monarch and, inspired by Leon Malenyev's revolution in United Contana, established a socialist state in accordance with the ideas of Malenyvism. Following the revolution, the new government gave the colonies of Volgos independence and replaced the old economic model with a command economy. Ulbricht's term saw many purges, arrests, and killings under the reasons for protecting the revolution. Emmerich Hegel was elected chancellor in 1940 following the death of Wilhelm Ulbricht. He started a period of de-Ulbrichtization and enacted many reforms which started a less repressive era in Volgsland. He reorganized the People's Party and distanced it from Malenyvist lines. He promoted what he called Volgslandian socialism, and greatly reformed the country according to those ideals. In recent years, huge reforms of Hegel have diminished the role of the Revolutionary People's Party and increased public participation in politics. The nation has a stable economy and strong civil rights record with average political freedoms. Volgslandian people have no unemployment problems, and enjoy higher living standards compared to other socialist republics. It has recently been selected as an example state on civil rights by the Alliance of Nations after the revolutionary reforms of Emmerich Hegel. It is a member of the Continental Security Pact, which was created against the growing threat of Arcasian capitalism and neo-imperialism. It is also a member of the Organization for Mercopan Economic Development and a permanent member of the Alliance of Nations. Right. But it is... Okay, so let's read a little bit about Emmerich Hegel. I guess he is the current leader. Emmerich Hegel is a Volkslandian politician and communist revolutionary who currently serves as Chancellor of the Democratic Republic of Volksland. He is also the chairman of the People's Party of Volksland. Hegel played a leading role in the 1920 Revolution and the establishment of the Democratic Republic of Volksland. He was also responsible for many relatively liberal reforms in areas of domestic policy. Hegel was a political commissar during the Volkslandian Revolution. He fought alongside the famous revolutionary Wilhelm Ulbricht, who led the revolution inspired by the Millennialist Revolution in United Cantona. Hegel extensively helped Ulbricht with the establishment of the People's Party. With Chancellor Ulbricht's help, he worked his way up the hierarchy. He supported Ulbricht's purges and the arrests of thousands of anti-communists in the 30s. He worked extensively for the decolonization of the Rica and Xena continents, convincing the government to give military and financial support to various independence and revolutionary movements. After Ulbricht's death in 1940, he was elected by the People's Party as the Chancellor of Volksland. He started a period of de-Ulbrichtization where he denounced his purges, which he supported earlier, and enacted many reforms which started a less repressive era in Volksland. He reorganized the People's Party and distanced it from millennialist lines. He promoted what he called Volkslandian socialism. Despite his reforms that shifted Volksland away from millennialism, he brought the country closer to United Cantona both economically and diplomatically. He also greatly improved the relations with the old colonies of the Volgos Empire. Let's find out what Volkslandian socialism is. It is a socialist theory as advocated by Volkslandian revolutionary Emmerich Hegel. Hegel developed it as a variant of Leon Mileniev's theory of millennialism. Volkslandian socialism is critical of leading through a vanguard party of the proletariat in favor of the establishment of labor union federations. It promotes the replacement of the state by a federal economic organization of society. Hegel argues that the socialist revolution can only be finalized when the statist form of socialism, where the state retains centralized control over the economy, is replaced by a decentralized structure based on the federal democracy through people's assemblies and labor unions. Okay, I think we'll go through like actual millennialism and all that part of the history just on its own, because we've got a whole section here for political organizations and things of that nature, as well as just history itself, ideology, all this stuff. Okay, so that's Volksland. What we learned from that is that they would be opposed as part of the CSP if we joined with Arcasia. So, Agnolia. People that we actually have strong relations with, or at least good relations. Agnolia is a merchant nation located in northeastern Marcopa along the Marcian Sea. It is famous for the masterfully crafted ships that sail many seas. Agnolians themselves are known to be very introverted. The country has long been under the shadow of Sordland while suffering territorial pressure from Rumburg, leading to the rise of a powerful democratic movement focused on change. Agnolia, officially the Republic of Agnolia, is a parliamentary republic situated in eastern Marcopa. It is currently governed by the centrist Neurist Democratic Union, led by Prime Minister Martin van Hoorten. I believe Neurism is a religious movement in this world. Its capital is Stalport. The name of the land was given to it by the Agno tribes when they first settled in the region in the early 7th century. The Agno people lived under the reign of the Marcian tribe and later under the Marcian Empire, only achieving statehood in the year 1600 with the independence of the Kingdom of Agnolia. The kingdom only lasted 75 years when the Agnolian queen Lena married the ruler of Sordland, Erik Rayne, and established a union between the two countries. The union is sometimes called the Agnolian Sordish Commonwealth, and it lasted until 1740. The Republic of Agnolia was founded in 1740 when the union with Sordland broke down following the death of Queen Lena. It was established as a merchant republic with a rector at its head. During the century of revolutions, the republic transformed into a parliamentary republic. In the 19th century, the country relied heavily on the protection of Sordland against the rising pressure of Rumsberg and Vogsland. Agnolia saw an economic boom in the late 1910s and expanded their navy throughout the decade. In 1923, Agnolia invaded Heligoland when the island briefly broke free from Vogsland after the Millennialist Revolution. Agnolia's economy started to recede in the late 30s and lived through two of the worst economic crises in its history in 1940 and 51. When Agnolia accepted financial aid from both United Contana and Arcasia to rebuild its economy. During the late 1940s, more than 1 million Agnolians have emigrated to Sordland, escaping poverty and hunger. The country is famous for its steel, coal, and fish. It arguably has one of the weakest economies in eastern Maricopa and an average civil rights record with very good political freedoms. Despite being a capitalist country, a large group of their population are believed to be sympathetic to millennialism and Vogslandian socialism. It is a member of OMEC and a member of the Alliance of Nations. Okay. Does it say who it is currently? Martin Van Horten. There we go. Martin Van Horten is an Agnolian politician who currently serves as Prime Minister of the Republic of Agnolia. He is the youngest politician to hold office in the government of Agnolia. Martin Van Horten became leader of the centrist Neurist Democratic Union of Agnolia in 1951 after his extensive campaign to bring Agnolian economies out of recession. He has been a staunch promoter of privatization and relaxed immigration laws. After his election as Prime Minister in 1952, he promised to find new trade partners and replace old unjust treaties with fairer ones. During his first years as Prime Minister, he brought Agnolia closer to the West, signing mutual cooperation agreements with Arcasia and Lesbia. He strongly promoted the free movement of people across Maricopa and increased Agnolia's presence in the OMEC and Alliance of Nations. During Van Horten's term, Agnolia's steel production greatly increased and the volume of Agnolian exports to western Maricopan countries doubled. In order to strengthen Agnolia's economy and its independence, he started a new initiative to discover new natural resources in the Marquian Sea. Following the discovery of oil in the territorial waters of Agnolia in 1953, he ordered the building of a massive fleet of oil tankers and drilling ships, while also increasing the investments on the Agnolian Navy. His quick expansion of the Navy and the increased Agnolian presence in the Marquian Sea has further deteriorated the country's relations with Vogsland. Okay, so they are not happy with each other, and this is the island that was taken. So this used to be part of Vogsland that they then invaded when these guys had their revolution. So, if there is ever conflict between these two, we should probably help out. Especially since Agonland was apparently once part of Agnolia. So we have, ethnically, we have an alliance as well as politically. We have a reason to stick together. However, they are weak. Hopefully we will never have to deal with war. And this is Dome. We'll read about this in a minute here, but Dome used to also belong to Agnolia. So, the Kingdom of Rumberg. Rumberg is a vast kingdom, located in the cold north of Maricopa. The territorial issues surrounding the country give it a bad reputation. As a people, Rumbergians are loyal, proud, and stubborn. For centuries they have clashed with the southern kingdoms due to their disadvantageous geographic position. The kingdom has grand global goals, or ambitions, though that too, but lacks key resources to fulfill them. 120 million people, with an overwhelming military, and we have bad relations. Yeah, it's going to be a problem. I think this is going to be a problem. Especially since in the last episode we learned that they appear to be behind some of the nationalist extremist movements in our country right now. The Kingdom of Rumberg, commonly known as Rumberg, is a constitutional monarchy situated in northern Maricopa. It is the largest country in the Maricopan continent by size, spanning the entire north from west to east. The country's capital is Thornborough, and its monarch is Queen Beatrice Livingston. Rumberg initially emerged as a march of the Rums around the 7th century, and later, with the migration, developed into the heartland for the Kingdom of the Rums. In 1599, Rumberg broke away from the Marquian Empire and established its own kingdom. Early in the 19th century, Rumberg transformed into a constitutional monarchy when King Uhtred transferred some of his powers to the Council of State, later to the Parliament of Rumberg. In the 19th century, Rumburg rose to prominence as a major power in Maricopa when it colonized and rapidly industrialized a massive area of steppe, tundra, and ice in the far north. After getting involved in and losing several wars in the previous century, Rumburg went through a period of rapid industrialization through collectivization and forced labor, particularly investing in military technology. During this period, Rumburg's military industry rose to rival Arcasia, and a rapid economic development resulted in some improvement in the standard of living. After suffering extensively during the 15-day war against Sordland, the country also developed the world's first automatic rifle, the Ka-74, which became the most popular weapon in the continent in the 20th century. In 1921, Beatrice Livingston acceded to the throne upon the death of King Alfred II. The Queen's rule started with the controversial annexation of Dome and expanded Rumburg's borders further south, starting what Queen Livingston called the Great Unification, which seeks to take back old lost territories and unify ethnic Rums under the kingdom. Following the Socialist Revolution in Vogsland, the Queen cancelled her father's plans to form an Eastern Mercopan pact with Vogsland and instead started warming up to Arcasia by establishing important trade deals. Despite the Rumburgian government's claims, the country is believed to have been heavily involved in both the Wayland Civil War and Sordish Civil War. The nation has a strong economy and a below-average civil rights record and very few political freedoms. Thanks to the heavy promotion of science and technology, or military technology, they experienced a very rapid technological development and are believed to possess significant experimental weapons. Despite being home to resource-rich areas in the north, Rumburg imports enormous amounts of raw materials to fuel their massive military industry. So perhaps one of the better ways of diffusing them would be to join with Arcasia, since they appear to pose a large threat here. Oh, wait. Not done. We're not done. Beatrice Livingston. Beatrice Livingston is Queen of the Kingdom of Rumburg and self-proclaimed ruler of all of northern Maricopa. She has been Queen of Rumburg since 1921, when she acceded to the throne at the age of 16 upon the death of her father, Alfred II. After her coronation, she has reigned as a constitutional monarch through major political changes, such as centralization of power in the kingdom, secularization reforms, as well as the dissolution and the integration of the northern territories into the kingdom. Her most notable action was the invasion of northern Agnolia and the annexation of Dome, which was executed by the Rumburgian army in a single night. She was condemned internationally and was expected to pay reparations to Agnolia, which she rejected to do. Rumburg did not face any major repercussions for the annexation, and the cause for reparations fell flat. It is regarded as one of the largest military and political victories of Rumburg to this day. Beatrice gained infamy for selling weapons to both the attackers and defenders during the Wayland Civil War. She also received numerous international criticisms for pursuing expansionist policies and was blamed by Arcasia and United Cantana for playing both sides. Beatrice has occasionally faced Republican sentiments and criticism of the royal family, in particular after her reforms which centralized the power in the kingdom, decreasing the authority of the Parliament of Rumburg. I think it would take us quite a bit of effort to undermine her. Alright, so Wayland. Wayland is a fragile country in the mountainous areas of western Maricopa. It's widely known to be the origin of the Nurity religion and contains many important shrines. The Wezek people are extraordinarily hospitable despite the lower living standards. Civil rights and political freedoms are somewhat limited due to the strict government policies focused on a stability agenda. They got a weak military as well, and we're neutral with them. There are only 17 million people compared to 120 in Rumburg. Yay. Wayland, officially the Republic of Wayland, is a presidential republic situated in eastern Maricopa. It is currently governed by the Wezek National Party of Nearest Socialism, led by President Victor Smolak. Its capital is Raklavitz. Wayland was founded by Baron Warung. My God, they love their W's. Warungrad Reznik in 1630, when he broke away from the Markian Empire to establish his own kingdom in the region dominated by Wezek people. Even though the Wezek people lived in the region for more than 1,000 years, they never had a state which unified the region of Wayland under one rule. After the Bloody Revolution in 1914, the kingdom was replaced by a republic. the country went through a brief period of economic golden age when gold and diamond mines as well as oil were discovered in the mountainous regions close to Rumburg and Lesbia. In 1930, the country plunged into a civil war after the assassination of their president by a Wessex royalist. Wayland was divided into two, and the conflict intensified when Arcasia supported northern Wayland and United Contana supported South Wayland. The armed rebel groups escaping from Sordland also formed bases in the country during this period. The brutal civil war caused a massive refugee crisis in the region and ended with the Reformation and the Republic in 1932. Arcasian forces did not leave the country and served as a peacekeeping mission until 1936. The country saw a massive surge in anti-Arcasianism between 1930s and 40s, which resulted in the reformation of the Wessex Nationalist Party of Nearest Socialism. After Victor Smolak became president in 1943, the country started looking like a one-party state. The country is famous for its oil, gold, and diamonds. It arguably has one of the weakest economies in eastern Maricopa and a very weak civil rights record with no political freedoms. It is ranked as the worst place in Maricopa to start a business in. Okay. Oh, wait. I always forget to read the... Victor Smolak. It's a Wessex politician who currently serves as the president of Wayland. In addition, he is commander-in-chief of the Wessex Armed Forces. He is known for his commitment to Wessex nationalism with socialist characteristics. He is the third president to rule Wayland after the departure of the Arcasian troops in the aftermath of the Wayland Civil War. He was the leader of the National Nearest Alliance of Wayland until 1940, which heavily promoted Wessex nationalism and Nearest traditionalism. After the failures of the previous post-war presidents in lifting the country out of economic recession, he formed his own political party, the Wessex Nationalist Party of Nearest Socialism, in 1942, which combined religious Nearest politics with Wessex nationalism and socialism. He was elected president in 1943. During his first year as president, Smolak oppressed and persecuted most of his opposition, censored the Wessex press, and seized the assets of the multimillionaires. As a staunch anti-Arcasian, he blamed royalists, liberals, and the Democrats for the Civil War and the subsequent Arcasian invasion. Despite being an anti-millennialist before the Civil War, he brought Wayland closer to United Contana, which helped him bring the country out of a recession with the financial aid coming from the CSP. Smolak's aggressive promotion of Wayland nationalism and Nearest politics also resulted in the oppression of ethnic and religious minorities in Wayland. His rule was marked by thousands of Bloodish people being arrested and killed, as well as military actions against the Bloodish Freedom Front, which set up bases in northeastern Wayland, and have been crossing the borders, apparently. And finally, Lesbia here. Lesbia. Lesbia is a wealthy country located at southern Maricopa along the West Sea. Its capital is Perla, world-renowned and Its capital, Perla, is world-renowned. I need to stop reading, and welcomes millions of curious tourists every year. Even though culturally more social and politically more liberal, the recent government in Lesbia has begun to turn away from openness. It promotes isolationism and protectionism. Lesbia is a member nation of ATO. 79 million, so it's a fairly large one. Lesbia, officially the Republic of Lesbia, is a country in eastern Maricopa with some pockets of territory in the Antician Sea. It is a parliamentary republic currently governed by the Democracia Lesbia Party with Patricio Alvarez as Prime Minister. Its capital is Perla. Lesbia is one of the oldest countries on the Maricopan continent, emerging as a kingdom in the early 9th century. It was conquered by the Marquian Empire in the 11th century, which ruled the area for nearly 6 centuries. When Lesbia became independent again in the 17th century, it emerged as a federation of small city-states, princedoms, and duchies, ruled by an elective monarch in Perla. The Republic of Lesbia was formed during the Century of Revolutions, following a peaceful revolution in 1850, inspired by the Arcasian Revolution. For much of the modern period until the 19th century, Lesbia ruled over a large area of land in the Antician Sea, as well as several colonies in the continent of Rica. The country was heavily criticized by the international arena for shutting down their borders during the Wayland Civil War. In the 1930s, Lesbia went through a great economic boom and emerged as a global economic power in the late 1940s. Arcasia is regarded as Lesbia's closest ally in the region, which has had very close ties with the nation for nearly a decade. After Patricio Alvarez became prime minister, he approved the housing of Arcasian military personnel in Lesbia, and in 1950 joined the Arcasian Treaty Alliance. The nation has arguably the strongest economy in eastern Mercopa and a below-average civil rights record with very good political freedoms. Despite being a wealthy country, lesbian people suffer from very high levels of inequality in between the poor and the rich. Lesbia has recently become a center of Eastern Mercopan tourism and entertainment. It is a member of the ATO, which was created to counter the influence of millennialism and United Continent's military capabilities. It is also a member of OMEC and the Alliance of Nations. All right. Patricio Alvarez is a lesbian politician and business magnate who currently serves as the Prime Minister of Lesbia. In 1950, the Eros magazine ranked him as the 100th richest man in the world. Alvarez's business career began in construction with his company Alvarez Industries. In the late 1930s, he built the famous Alvarez Towers, where he based his business, and Falanco 5, a development of 5,000 residential apartments in the city of Falanco. He was investigated by the Lesbian Anti-Corruption Force for profiteering in 1940, but the investigations were dropped the same year when he entered the Democrazia Lesbia as a member of the Lesbian Parliament. He has reportedly admitted that he entered politics so as to avoid imprisonment. Alvarez was elected as leader of Democrazia Lesbia and launched a massive campaign of electoral advertisements on all lesbian channels through his network of connections. He entered the 1949 elections and was elected as Prime Minister of Lesbia. His term saw major tax concessions, removal of many state regulations, and a general improvement of the lesbian economy. One of the biggest achievements of his term was Lesbia's membership approval in the ATO. He was elected again in 1953. So I guess, why don't we go ahead and... would it be locations? Countries? There we go, maybe. Let's go ahead and just finish off Arcasia and... did I read this already? I don't know. We'll just keep it all together. The Republic of Arcasia, commonly known as Arcasia, is a constitutional republic situated in the western half of Mercopa and considered as a superpower of the world. The country's capital is Ventry City, a global city which is regarded to be the financial center of the world. It is currently led by President Dwight Walker. The Republic of Arcasia was founded in 1823 after the overthrow of King Jonathan XII by Arcasian revolutionaries, which started a period of conflict and revolutions in the world called the Century of Revolutions. At the end of the century, it emerged as a global superpower which expanded its influence by promoting capitalism to all corners of the world. Arcasia relies heavily on its military power and has been involved with many military operations and security pacts around the world. A highly developed country, the nation became the world's largest economy by nominal GDP at the start of the 20th century. During this period, many Arcasian companies rose to be the most profitable and largest in the world. The funding of the Arcasian universities transformed them into the world's best education centers, and its people earned various political freedoms that the world has never seen before. The economic power is currently locked in a fierce global ideological battle with United Continent. Both powers are in a race of influence around the globe. Arcasia has a strong presence in the West, but has been slowly growing their influence in the farther corners of the world, most of the time in conflict with United Continent. While some view Arcasia as a beacon of freedom that enlightens the world, others see it as an oppressive government set out to enslave their countries, and recent reports of torture camps and unethical use of force to interrogate prisoners of war has caused major political problems within the country and an international outcry which contributed to the latter idea. Arcasia also experiences high levels of inequality between rural and urban areas. There is more undeveloped land in Arcasia than any of the countries in the world. It is home to the most remote regions of the western north, as well as the central Mercopan desert. The nation has arguably the strongest economy in the world and an average civil rights record. Wow, and with Oh my God, I'm guessing that whoever wrote all this stuff is either not a native speaker or they're just very sloppy with grammar. There are various problems with their plurals and non-plurals and articles and whatnot. Anyway, they've got civil rights, average civil rights, and a very good political freedom. Okay. Arcasian people enjoy the low unemployment levels and higher purchasing power than most of the world. It has recently become the center of consumerist culture. It is the founding member of the Arcasian Treaty Organization, which was created to counter the influence of millennialism and United Kantana's military capabilities. It is a member of OMEC and the Alliance of Nations. All right, about United Kantana, a federalist socialist republic situated on the continent of Kantana and considered as a superpower of the world. It is a union of multiple socialist republics spanning Kantana. The country is a one-party state governed by the Communist Party with Kyo as its capital. It is led by Chairman Leon Mileniev, and I guess I didn't do the leader of the other one. We'll go back and do that. United Kantana had its roots in the 1907 revolution when the revolutionaries of the Trotsky, led by Leon Mileniev, overthrew the Kantanian government which had replaced the autocratic regime of the king during the century of revolutions. In 1910, after a civil war ending in the Trotsky's victory, the United Kantana was formed by a treaty which united the Kantanian, Transkantanan, and Kiovian Bielo-Kantanan republics of the Kantana continent. My God. Could have picked slightly less tongue-twisty names. Mileniev replaced the market economy with a command economy, which led to a period of rapid industrialization and collectivization in United Kantana. During this period, rapid economic development resulted in dramatic improvements in the average standard of living, particularly in urban areas. The country saw major reforms under the ideology of millennialism. It promoted the idea of the permanent revolution abroad and supported social revolutions in nearby states with early-stage capitalism. United Kantana grew their influence around the world with millennialist ideas and rose to become a superpower of the world. United Kantana is currently locked in a fierce global ideological battle with Arcasia. Both powers are in a race of influence around the globe. United Kantana has been growing their influence around the world by supporting less fortunate nations with their problems, supporting revolutionaries and unions abroad. They have already influenced several revolutions to occur, which led to the founding of new Marco-millennialist nations. The nation has a very strong economy and an average civil rights record with few political freedoms. Thanks to the education reforms and heavy promotion of sciences, they experienced a technological golden age and currently are considered to be ahead of their rivals in the world. The continent is very resource-rich, and United Kantana uses this as a means to spread their influence around the globe. It tends to export natural resources more than any nation in the world, and in exchange sets up military bases in strategic countries. It is the founding member of the Continental Security Pact, which was created against the growing threat of Arcasian capitalism and neo-imperialism. It is also a permanent member of the Alliance of Nations. Let's go read about Chairman Leon Mileniev. My God, is a Kantanan revolutionary politician and political theorist who had been serving as head of government of United Kantana since 1910. Under his administration, Kantania and then the wider United Kantana became a communist state governed by the Kantanan Communist Party. Ideologically a communist, he developed a variant of Marxian socio-economics known as millennialism. Born to a poor family in the Kantanian Empire, now in United Kantana, Mileniev embraced revolutionary socialist politics following his brother's execution. He moved to Kyo in 1901 and became a senior theorist following I'm assuming it has to deal with, the old Mark Empire or whatever, but Marxian socio-economics, inspired by Carlos Marcia's, political theory. He developed millennialism when he joined the Marxist Kantanan Labor Party. He took a key role in the party's ideological split, leading the Trotsky faction against the rest of the factions and encouraging millennialism inside the party. He later campaigned for the century of revolutions to be transformed into a Kantana-wide proletarian revolution, which he believed would cause the overthrow of capitalism and its replacement with socialism. He led the Rotskis in the 1907 revolution and declared a communist republic by ousting the king. He became famed for his massive education and science plan that has raised his vast nation to technological supremacy in the region, contesting with Arcasia. He was responsible for leading United Cantana to a period of rapid industrialization and collectivization through the execution of a command economy and pursuing socialist reforms that led to the development of the entire continent. His ideology has been developed and interpreted into different schools of thought in other parts of the world, while Marco-Millennivists keep growing in number, making Leon Millenniev one of the most influential leaders of the century. Alright, let's go read about Dwight Walker. Dwight Walker is an Arcasian politician and businessman who currently serves as president of the Republic of Arcasia. He is famed for the implementation of the Walker Plan to rebuild the economy of the Mercopan nations and the establishment of the Arcasian Treaty Organization. Walker was born into a wealthy political family in Ventry City, Arcasia. He studied international affairs before joining the Arcasian naval forces to fight for the democracies of East Mercopa during the Century of Revolutions. After the war, Walker was elected to the Arcasian House of Representatives as a member of the Democracy Party. He is regarded to be one of the most popular presidents who ever came to be elected, especially for his economic policies in Arcasia, which elevated a huge portion of the population out of poverty. With Arcasia doing better than ever, the concept of the Arcasian dream emerged during his term, which triggered many immigrants to travel to Arcasia with hopes for a better life. He also became famed as a staunch opponent to communism and millennivism, as well as the symbol of liberty in the Western world. Walker was an instrumental force in the development of the Mercopan democracies and the establishment of defense systems throughout the continent against the rising superpower United Cantana. He led the formation of the ATO against the threat of millennivism and followed a strategy to block United Cantana with strategic partnerships and the construction of anti-missile systems in the country's neighboring millennialist nations. Okay, so that's the world that we live in. Next time, I guess maybe I'll look a little bit more closely at home here. Could go through all of our cities. We've got all of our politics. All the people in our government is probably a good thing to look at. What we've got going on here. Maybe we should be looking at government, seeing as how that's something that we're kind of working on directly. Then we can go into the lore next time. Anyway, I'm going to end this one here. I will see you next time.